Hi, welcome to BAL, Building Athletic Lifestyles. I'm Neil. This is part 8 of the Fundamentals series. If you missed any of the previous parts, there is a link down below. You can find those. Do try and watch those first. We build on them brick by brick as we go. Today, we're going to be talking about tempo, so how quickly you're actually moving the weights in the gym themselves. This is primarily related to hypertrophy, that muscle building. With strength, it's all dictated by your ability to actually move the weight itself rather than any predetermined routine that you're going for. Why is the speed we're lifting relevant? It's mostly down to safety. If you're under control of the weight the whole way through, then your risk of injury is significantly lower. If you're moving particularly quickly, that risk of injury can often go higher because you might be losing some of that control. In control is something I would describe as if someone was filming you at 60 frames a second, so 60 pictures every second. If you paused at any one of those frames, any one of those pictures in that second, you should be under control of the weight at that point, no matter where that is throughout a movement itself. Just to get into a little bit of literature that's surrounding this topic, there was a meta-analysis by Schoenfeld in 2015. He was with a couple of co-workers as well. I haven't quoted all of them here. Basically what they found, the upshot of that was that there was similar hypertrophy in the range of 0.5 seconds per rep all the way up to 8 seconds per rep. What they did also find was that actually above 10 seconds, if that rep took you 5 seconds to come down, 1 second pause at the bottom, 5 seconds to get back up, you're actually getting less hypertrophy off of that. We'll come into why that might be a little bit further along. In literature, you'll find it written in the standard format here. So 1010 is the lifting tempo that I've used as an example here. That's seconds for each point, and I've written underneath what each of them are. So that first number, the first one, is your eccentric, your lowering or your lengthening phase. So if you think of with a bicep curl, it's as my arm is going from bent to straight, that would be the eccentric. You got the bottom movement, so once my arm is straight, how long am I there? So in this case it would be 0, so I'm not pausing at the bottom. Concentric, which is then the arm to come back, and again the top is going to be nothing in terms of no pause at the top on this one as well. So the lifting tempo for this movement would be a 1 second eccentric, no pause, straight into a 1 second concentric. Yeah. You may also find as well that if it's written as an X, that's simply maximal effort. So you see that a lot in terms of like power training, where you're just trying to move the weight as quickly as possible, and actually there isn't a predetermined value that you're aiming for. So there's a lot of literature surrounding manipulating the eccentrics themselves, and the biggest findings are that they require less energy, you can use a heavier load, and generally it allows you to get a greater degree of volume. So listening to that, we've already spoken about in a previous video how volume is one of the biggest determinants for hypertrophy and that muscle building. If we can get more volume from eccentrics, surely that's great, right? But remember, it's also different what you can do in the lab and what you can do in the real world. They don't always line up perfectly, so you're always going to be limited if you're training on your own by your concentric ability, because your ability to move the weight. If you're doing a bench press, so pushing off the chest, if you put a weight that you can lower down to the chest but you can't push off the chest, you're going to get stuck under the bar. The way to work around that is if you've got a training partner or someone that you're training with, they can then do enhanced eccentrics with you, where they essentially assist with the concentric and then you do the work for that heavier eccentric lowering down. But if you're training on your own, you don't really have that option as such. Something you see talked about a lot with this is that it increases your time under tension. In terms of that time under tension, it's the time that the muscle is working throughout that movement itself. The only thing that's limited through that is that you haven't applied any real magnitude of tension or the force that's actually involved in the movement. This is also known as the impulse, if you're tiptoeing around getting a little bit physicsy here, but I'll try and keep it nice and simple. Essentially, if you're using a lighter load but slowing the movement down, yes, you've got a greater degree of time under tension, but you haven't necessarily got a greater degree of volume in terms of the impact that's going to have on the muscle and then your muscle protein synthesis off the back of that. So volume is the biggest determinant first, then things like enhanced eccentrics come a little later on. There's an awful lot of studies that have shown that extended periods of eccentrics generally is inferior in terms of hypertrophy and your ability to build muscle. That's largely down to the fact that you can't do as much volume because you fatigue quicker, you've got greater degrees of energy store depletion just because of the time involved. But that doesn't mean that if you don't have a training partner, eccentrics aren't useful. There is benefits in terms of a neurological adaptation and also that change in technique, your ability, your positional strength throughout movements. So if you take something like a squat, I would always encourage new lifters to take their time through a squat, something like a 3 second eccentric, little pause at the bottom, half a second perhaps, and then you've got 2-second concentric, just to get you familiar with the position throughout the movement, so that again you can focus on being in control throughout the whole movement. Also, if you've got any sticking points or points that you lack power or strength through the movement, they'll be highlighted through this process as well, because it gives you time in each position throughout the movement pattern itself. So it does still have a benefit, but largely I would focus on the control aspect of it more than anything. If you're a complete beginner, go nice and slow and make sure you're controlling the weights all the way through, and focus instead on trying to build up your volume to make progress. For higher end of intermediate into advanced lifters, tempos become much more important, and that's the point where you can start manipulating them more specific to your goals, but there'll always be a specific goal in mind related to it. You don't just do them for the sake of doing it. Good, if you have any questions or feedback, drop a comment down below. I'll get back to you from there as well. Make sure to like the video on your way. Good, next we're going to be talking about nutrition. Big topic this one, so make sure you don't miss it. Hit that subscribe button down below, hit the little bell so you get a notification when that video goes live next Tuesday. See you in the next one.